Hey everyone, I just got off the line with American singer-songwriter, performer, author, actress, and proud daughter of the late iconic entertainer Deana Martin. We talked about her hometown of Manhattan, New York, 2006 memoir, Memories Are Made of This, Dean Martin Through His Daughter's Eyes, the Rat Pack, the qualities of a great entertainer, her most difficult career sacrifices, original records, and more. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Deana. Deana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on and all those fabulous things you said about my dad and me.
No problem, no problem. I mean, it's not every day that you can interview someone from such a historic family. So it's an honor, and the honor is mine to interview you.
Oh, well, thank
Um,
you very much.
well, I want to start with this. It's interesting that you mentioned that Manhattan, New York is your hometown.
Yes, I was born there. I love New York. I love Manhattan, but it's changed a little since then,
Yeah,
back in the day.
absolutely. And you don't know this, but me and you are from the same hometown. Um, because I was originally born in Brooklyn, New York, but actually was in Manhattan, New York, um, in 2001, August 1st. So yeah, it's really cool to see that um, we both can resonate on that same topic.
That's right. You were born August 1st.
2001.
2001. Wow, that's very cool. So I was born at 4061st Street.
That's
Yeah, there
cool.
was,
That's really cool.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
yeah, so that's, I think the Lowe's hotel is right there on that corner. Yeah, so is very cool. Well, so we have a lot more in common than I thought. So are you a Leo? You're born in August?
I would probably think I am. I'm not sure. I don't really pay attention to that really.
Well,
Um,
I just people tell me that Leos are really outgoing and fabulous and smart, so they must be right.
I guess you're right on that level. And so I think we also relate on the same level that you are an Italian American, but I live here in an Italian community. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so can you talk to me about what it means for you to be an Italian American?
It's so special for me to be an Italian American. And I have to tell you, because my dad was very proud. You know, my grandfather, Gaetano Crosetti, came over on the boat, Ellis Island, 1913. And then they went to, let's see, Steubenville, Ohio. So my dad was born there. He was born Dino Paul Crosetti. And he was, brought up in Italian customs and things. And I have to tell you this one thing that's most important to me. My middle name is Angela because my grandmother, her name is Angela, and she taught me how to make pasta vazul because it was my dad's favorite. And when I was 9 years old, she came over to the house and she said, Nadina, I'm going to teach you how to make the pasta vazul because when I'm gone, this will be a connection for you and your father and me. And it'll be so great. She said, you can't write it down, can't tell your sisters, just you have to memorize what it is. So sure enough, I did. And 30 years after my grandmother passed away, it was Christmas. And I thought, oh, what am I going to get my dad? Another V-neck sweater, another picture. And the pasta visual came to mind. So I went to the store, I got all the ingredients, I made it. It came back to me just in a flash. I went to my dad's house. I put it in a ball mason jar with a red ribbon. And when I handed it to him, the way he looked at it, and then he looked at me, and I'm getting chills right now that I'm telling you this. He said, is this what I think it is? Is this my pasta visual? And I said, yes, I could cry right now because it was so important to him. And I made it for him every week for the rest of his life.
Absolutely. That's such a cool story,
Uh-huh.
just in time for the holidays, And
Yes, it
so with that being said, I want to ask you, what is the traditions in the household for the Martins?
Well, one of our favorite traditions is, we go down to where for the Christmas tree. We have to go pick out the Christmas tree, and we had a very large living room, so we had the biggest, so we couldn't put it on the car or anything. So it would be delivered. It would be brought in the house and put down, in the living room. And my dad would get up on a very tall ladder. I mean, he would do this. We'd go down to the basement, get all of our ornaments and all the lights and bring everything up. And then Dad would stand up on that very tall ladder. Now, I don't know if you remember, well, you're too young to remember the lights, and they were green and red and blue, and they were really big ones, long, long, line. So we would give it to Dad, and he would put all the Christmas lights around the tree. And what he had us do, he had all the kids, because there were 7 of us, he had us stand back, way back in the room, and he would say, okay, now squint. So if you squint, you can see where there's no lights. And so then we would say, okay, right there on the right. So can you imagine 7 kids standing back, squinting at Dean Martin on the Christmas tree? So that was so much fun. And then, of course, we'd decorate the tree. And on Christmas Eve, we'd go to midnight mass down at Good Shepherd Church. And then we'd come back, and we could open one gift night before Christmas, and before Santa was going to come. And we would have a nice big Italian meal, and we'd sing Christmas carols, and people would come Christmas caroling around the house. So that was our tradition all the time. Food, family, friends, and music.
Absolutely. And yeah, you're just talking about the Christmas lights. That's so interesting, because that's what we actually have here at the house as well.
You do?
Yeah, we do have those Christmas lights still that we use. And I think a lot of people say, well, you're too old to be celebrating Christmas. Well, actually, that's not true, because it's, you can never grow out of it. It's just a thing to make you feel good. And
Yeah.
it's a part of a tradition it's gonna last a long time.
Well, as Andy Williams said, it's the most wonderful time of the year. And what a great song. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I loved Andy Williams. My dad used to call him Mr. Christmas. So when Andy would come over, he'd go, hey, Mr. Christmas, so we had a lot of fun. Christmas is very important to the Martin family and to the world.
Absolutely. And talking about your father, can you talk to me more about what you learned from your father, and the lessons that he taught you?
Oh, yeah, very, very important, because he taught me, he said, Deana, please, he said, treat people the way you want to be treated. You're not better than anybody. No one's any better than you. Just get out there, go to school, work every day. And I remember one time, because he was trying to teach me about money, and he was so cool. He said, okay, because I asked him for my allowance, and I had done my chores. And he said, now, Deana, in order for me to give you this $10, I have to make $100. And I thought, oh my gosh, in order for me to get, when I get married and have kids, am I going to have to make $100 to give our kids 10? He said, it's going to be a lot more when you're grown up. But he taught me that. And he said, Deana, always, if you're going into this business, he said, always be on time. Don't be late. Don't keep people waiting for you. Be there on time, be early. In fact, know all the lines, know all your lines, know your song, stand on your mark, and make people happy that they met you. And so that's what I try. And then he said, and please, most of all, don't embarrass me. He was so sweet. He really, really was.
Absolutely. And that's such a heartwarming story to hear about your father. And he just seemed like a very cool guy, a very cool gentleman that just knew the importance of also having his own kids follow their own dreams. I remember listening to the Let's Talk to Lucy podcast today. I've been listening to it for a few weeks now. And I was listening to that episode with Dean, and he was asked about what do you want for your kids? And he said that, I just want them to do whatever they want to do. It's not like he's going to stop anyone from doing what they pursue, right?
Yeah.
And was your father just that type of man?
He was easy. He was funny. First of all, he was the nicest, sweetest man you'd ever want to meet. And he was super cool. Okay. And he would, if he wasn't working, he would get up in the morning, he'd go down, have breakfast, he'd go play golf. And then, he'd have lunch with his friends, and he was home every night for dinner. And you could hear him, because he had like, I don't know, in those days, they had like not taps on their shoes, but something so that heels on your shoes wouldn't wear out. I could hear him come in the back door, And then he would walk into the kitchen, he'd get a piece of Wonder Bread, put a little butter on it, fold it in half, walk into the living room, sit down and eat that bread. Then he'd go down to the bar and have a cocktail, a glass of wine or a cocktail with my mom. And they would talk for, for an hour before dinner. And then the kids would come in and, we would, have a nice time. Then we'd all go into the dining room and have dinner together. So, but that's the way he was. If he wasn't working, he was home every night, and he was very, very special. And he's just, a great dad. That's who you wanted, because all our friends wanted to come to our house because Dean Martin was so cool. And it's true, he was.
Yeah. And so I want to bring this back to you now because you've had such success early on. Can you talk to me about your early success in your career?
Well, you know what, and the thing is, I was very young when I recorded my first record, A Girl of the Month Club, and When He Remembers Me, and it was with Lee Hazelwood. And Lee's the one who wrote, Houston, and he did Nancy Sinatra's These Boots Are Made for Walking and everything. So that was my first experience. But I went to Dartington College of Arts for college in England. And that's where I learned, about acting and being on my own. And I starred in movies and TV. In fact, I was on one of the Monkees TV show. Have you ever seen the Monkees?
No,
No,
I haven't.
you're too young for the Monkees. Well, go online and find out about the Monkees, okay? Because they were a rock and roll group and they had a TV show called The Monkees. And I was on one of the episodes, and that was very fun. But I did movies and plays, and and I sang. So I was very fortunate because my dad taught me to pursue it and be good at it. Please, make sure that you know what you're doing. And and so it worked. My dad would not pick up the phone and call someone and say, put Deana in your show. That's not what he would do. If we got it, great. And he said, and if you don't get it, work a little harder, go back and try again.
Absolutely. And so can you talk to me about, with all your experience, I want to go down the resume for you. You're a recording artist, best-selling author, radio host, licensed pilot, entrepreneur. And also you released a memoir called Memories Are Made of This, Dean Martin Through His Daughter's Eyes. Can you talk to me more about the significance behind that?
It's well, first of all, that's the book that I wrote about, my life and my dad. And Memories Are Made of This, Dean Martin Through His Daughter's Eyes, because I was at the original recording of Memories Are Made of This. That was my dad's first #1 hit. When I was a little girl, I went to Capitol Records and I sat there watching him sing Memories Are Made of This with his backup singers. They were called the Easy Riders. So this is my book, my memories about growing up. And you know what? It's a book for everyone to read. Doesn't matter if you're an 18-year-old girl, a 75-year-old man, everybody in between. It's not that it's not because you read it because you love Dean Martin. You're going to learn a lot about Dean Martin, but it's about humans. This is about us. It's about your life, and it's about things that everybody goes through. It's not just, I'm not just Dean Martin's daughter that everything was given to me. You have to read the book and you find out everything in all of our lives, what people go through. And it's really, it's incredible. People come up if I'm doing a book signing, and it could be a 65-year-old man. And he says, I learned so much from your book. He said, I treat people a little bit differently now. Where it's a 16-year-old girl who said, oh my gosh, I just loved your book. And your dad reminds me of my dad. So it's really it's a special book, and I think everyone should read it. It's really good. Excuse me.
Mhm. And so with all your experience that you've had in your career, can you talk to me more about or explain what are the qualities to make a great entertainer?
I think hard work. I think hard work. You have to really, and there's another cute little aside from that. Know your craft, learn your craft, and stick with it. You may go out on, on interviews, and you may not get the first, 15. Keep going. You have to stick with it. Never give up, never give in. And always when you go in, have a nice personality. Make sure, just like my dad said, don't be, don't be a jerk or anything. Just be nice. Go in, learn your lines, and and just stick with it. And so I think that's the most important thing, is to practice, 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 and rehearse, and just, first of all, I think you should love what you're doing. That's the most important thing. If you love what you're doing, it's never going to be, a hard, well, it's all hard work. But if you're loving it, and you can experience that, it's very important to love what you're going to do and stick to it.
Absolutely. And can you explain to me, what would you say your most difficult career sacrifice was?
Difficult career sacrifice. Gee, I don't know that, everything has its own difficulties in it. I know, in the beginning, when I was traveling around, it's tough being on the road and doing plays, and you're in a different place every night. And so it's packing and unpacking, but it's all, a part of it. And it's just a lot of hard work. And I'm sure you know that, because you can't give in. You can't say, oh no, I don't want to do it tonight. You've got the show, you're going to go out there, give your best. Because one of my favorite songs is called "The Show Must Go On." And so that's, in my life, the show must go on. So you get up every day. And I've been lucky, because I wake up in the morning and I say, okay, what can I do today? Let's try something new. And I've always had that kind of personality. Okay, let me learn a new song. Let's do this. So I have a good outlook on life, and never any of the, oh, poor me. It is hard work. You have to get up and you have to do it. And as I say, make sure you love what you're doing.
Absolutely. And right on point there for you. And, your albums that you've had, Volare, White Christmas, Destination Moon, Swing Street. What do these albums mean to you?
Oh my God, each one has its own, special story. Well, White Christmas, of course, because it's Christmas time right now. And one of my favorite parts about that is when Andy Williams sang White Christmas with me. And when I asked him if he would do it, he said, Deana, I would love to. And my favorite part about that song is at the end, when I say, Merry Christmas, Andy. And then he says, Merry Christmas, Deana. So just to hear him say, Merry Christmas, Deana, very special. But all the songs on the Christmas album, of course, are fun and up, and well, it's Christmas time. But my first album, which was let's see, Memories Are Made of This, that was really something, because that was my first long playing, the album and CD. And so doing all of those songs, because when I was younger and I did my 45s, When He Remembers Me, and those, it was just one song, two songs. But now doing a whole album, picking out the songs, getting the best musicians, having fabulous arrangements written. So it's all a process, and it's fun, and as I say, it's hard work. And then of course Swing Street was so much fun, doing it at Capitol Records, where my dad recorded, when Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, in that same studio that my dad recorded in, the same studio that I was in when I was like 9 years old, watching my dad do Memories Are Made of This. And, so for me to be able to go there, use the same microphones that all these people had, Nat King Cole's piano. So for me to be there singing these songs in that room, it was, very, very special. But on Destination Moon, where I sing the duet with my dad, True Love, and I was standing at Capitol, and when I heard his voice come on the headset, I almost just melted, because it was kind of hard to get through it. But we did it, and it was great. It turned out, it's just very, very special. So it's all the musicians who are there, the engineers. It's a whole vibe to be at Capitol Records in Hollywood, California.
No, for sure, absolutely. And there's a lot of stories with the Rat Pack. And I don't know how much time we have left with this interview, but if you can just briefly explain quickly about the Rat Pack, and what is that group?
Oh, well, they were just so amazing. And Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, and Sammy Davis Jr. And they were, my uncle Frank Sinatra, my uncle Sammy Davis Jr. But let me just tell you a little something. Going to the Sands Hotel when I was a little girl, sitting in the front row, in the Copa room, and my dad would come out and you would hear the announcer say, "Ladies and gentlemen, direct from the bar, Dean Martin." And then my dad would walk out looking so cool in his tuxedo with the red pocket square. And he'd sing a few songs and he was funny. And I knew right then that that's what I wanted to do, because everybody around me going, "Oh, there he is. Oh, he's fabulous and he's funny." And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a singer. I'm going to, come out on stage and have fun. And then, of course, when my uncle Frank Sinatra would come out and kid around with my dad, and then Uncle Sammy Davis Jr., to have the three of them. And there I am in the Copa room at the Sands Hotel with Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., and they were the best entertainers. They had fun. They loved each other. They sang great. They could dance. They could joke around. And you felt like you were part of them. They made you part of their show. And so that's what I learned from the Rat Pack, because they were unbelievable. They were great at everything they did. And they were funny and they had a good time on stage. So I was able to learn from the very best.
Absolutely, and certainly for sure. And
And
so
that,
as we're wrapping up, I want to just briefly burst through these last few questions with you. First and foremost, I want to talk about Deana Martin live,
ah,
because that's interesting to me, because it's really cool, like at the same time to see you just keeping your dad's legacy alive and keeping that style of music still going, because you don't
yeah.
hear that often now. But why was the Deana Martin live show just important to you?
Well, because when the pandemic started, and all my shows were canceled, and I had two sold out shows in Beverly Hills at Herb Alpert's Vibrato, and we found out you can't go anywhere, so everything was canceled like 2 days before. And I thought, oh my gosh, so what am I going to do for all my pallies who are going to show up at Vibrato? And so you met Rosario, my assistant. She said, well, why don't you do a Facebook Live show? I said, what's that? She said, well, we take your iPhone, we put it on a tripod, and we went down into my rehearsal room down here that's behind me. She said, and I have my handsome husband, John, who's my producer. He's on music. She said, just sing some songs. So 144 shows ago, 144 weeks ago is when I did my first, Deana Martin live show. I was sitting in a chair, I had on flip-flops and I sang songs, because all of my music is recorded without my voice. So I can just sit there and sing. So, and I didn't know that people were going to watch. Who knew? But as as the weeks went by and people tuned in every week, and I ended up, listen to this, #1 live broadcast in the world. Over 300,000 people were watching it. And it was just me sitting there, with Rosario on comments, and, people are writing in, and my husband with the music. And we just, sang songs and, said some corny jokes, kind of like my dad. And it has been going for over 2.5 years now. In fact, I just finished it before I sat here with you. I'm still dressed in my Deana Martin live 144th show. And so you're the first person I've spoken to since then.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm a big supporter of that show, and it's just a really cool thing that you're doing.
Thank
Um,
you very much.
and so as we're wrapping up, I want to ask you this one last question. What's your
Okay.
#1 advice for aspiring entertainers?
Oh, it's important. First of all, you have to be very serious about it. Make sure that that's what you want to do, and study. Make sure that you're the very best at what you do. And, if it's singing, here's a funny little thing, because, I said to my dad, could I take some voice lessons? He said, well, why? You want to sound like everybody else in the choir? I said, no. He said, first of all, just get your own voice, find your own style. He said, and once you do that, yeah, then, have some voice lessons. So make sure that you know what you're doing, go to school on the subject, find out who you really admire, and make sure that you study all these people that you admire and find your own self, just like my dad said. Be your own self and just never, and I've said this before, never give up, never give in, but know what you're doing and watch everything that you can, read everything you can, and listen to different people, and you'll get your own style. And my uncle Frank Sinatra gave me very good advice. He said, Deana, he said, as you go through life and you're singing this song and that song, it will change as you get older. He said, and let it change. It's okay. You don't have to do the song the same way twice. He said, because in your life, you'll have experiences that change some of the things about you, and you will learn how to, sing your songs in a different way. So for anybody who's going into the business, make sure you know what you're doing, learn your lines, and work very hard at being yourself. Show up on time.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to say goodbye here, but I thank you for having this conversation with me. It was such an honor. And to the listeners who've been sticking around this much, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with American singer-songwriter, performer, actress, and the proud daughter of the late beloved iconic entertainer Deana Martin. You can find her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. For more info, visit deanamartin.com. If you'd like to help spread the word about my podcast, please do feel free to share with others, post about it on social media. Any form of support is greatly appreciated. Lastly, you can find my show on all podcasting platforms.
You were absolutely fantastic. You did all of your homework, and you're one of my favorite interviews. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I've been your host, Jigme Kelsang. Thanks for sticking around. And before we conclude this interview, I was telling you that I had to show you something. And that was this.
Oh, holiday cheer. Is he cute or what? Isn't that a fabulous vinyl? Oh my gosh. Thank you for that. You just made me very happy. Christmas cheer.
I mean, thank you very much for taking the time again.
All right, my dear. You were wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.